Shadow on the track. Let's get it. I'm a rock star type nigga, fucks bad bitches. See me in the drop cause I stay.
Yo, 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 and yo. Welcome back. I can't. Welcome back, everybody, to your boys here at M.A.S Media. This is Big Mike.
And Aaron, A-Dub, Double A Hef, in the building. Yeah.
That's exactly why I cannot. Y'all, this is a special time of the year for those in the quote unquote Black community. We wanted to give our introductory episode to the one, the only Black History Month. So your boys here at M.A.S Media are taking it upon ourselves today to discuss the inner workings of Black History Month, sort of a how-to guide of how you should go about looking at it, dissecting it, moving about your day-to-day with it, since it's the only month that we're given to cherish the millennia plus of history that we've compiled on this beautiful planet of ours. We essentially should we should listen and create this guide so that you can maximize these 25 days, these 28 days that they provided for us so happily, and with such smile on their faces. And then we should do as much as we can to celebrate it. So basically we want to dive right into this, and we want to kind of get eventually some feedback from y'all as far as how you guys go about celebrating your Black History Months respectfully, and what you guys do to cherish some of that Black history that we so lovingly appreciate this time of year, y'all. So all right, so I want to get this question smooth out the way, because we've seen Black History Month since we've grown up, obviously. What has Black History Month always meant to you?
Well, thank you for asking the question, but what has it always meant to me? Growing up, what it meant to me was the time of the year when they would always teach us about Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech,
Mm-hmm.
the Rosa Parks, the bus boycott, Selma, Revolutionary War, Civil War to a degree. Pretty much that's what that time of the year always meant to me, growing up. How about you?
Yeah, I felt like it was in a vacuum, it was literally just a pot thrown up of major political. I would say the major commercial political figures. The Martin Luther Kings, as you mentioned, the Malcolm X's of the world. Maybe a little bit of Nelson Mandela in there. Just for good spirit, just to show the international aspect of racial inequality across the world. So they may sprinkle him in there somewhere at some point, just for good merit. But essentially, yes. And then the Civil War comes in there. If they really want to dive in deep, they give a little bit about the slave trade and how kind of we got to that mid 1950 verdict, as far as the Civil Rights Act. That we got to, in the 60s verdict that we got to with the Civil Rights Act. So they would give us, these little renditions to sort of build an overall picture without truly giving the full scope. So to me, it's always been just a commercialized sort of whirlwind of Black figures that everybody can sort of take home with you. The ones that my parents are even privy to as well, and that's kind of all it's been. To the point where I really don't have any memory of it ever being something where it was like it just encaptured. I just remember seeing them paste, those pictures of these people on their doors, or if there's a history class, they may paste some figures, just to be decorative, things of that nature. But outside of that, once that month is done, it's just like you would think it was like the ghost of Christmas Eve. It was just like, as soon as Christmas comes, it's gone. So that's kind of what I've always been used to when it comes to Black History Month.
You know what's crazy? And I just thought about this right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've thought about it, but like I've never thought about it like this, the way I'm about to present it. You have quote unquote Black History Month, which is February every year, and across this great nation of ours, you have tons of Caucasian administrators and teachers who teach. They quote unquote teach quote unquote Black history,
right?
And that's just super interesting when you think about it. Say I were to say I had a class where I taught white history, and I taught a bunch of white people their history.
Correct.
Wouldn't that be strange? How much of my history how much of their history would I know?
Lord.
Like how can I teach you your history better than you know yours? You get where I'm going?
Yeah, no, I think you're making the point about how mostly, I mean, obviously we know mostly in the suburban areas of New Jersey, we have Caucasian teachers teaching young Negro kids essentially about their ancestors in a vacuum, which is a huge paradox. Is that what you're saying?
But it gets deeper though. Think about it from this perspective, Mike. So you have these teachers teaching these kids quote unquote Black history, right?
Right.
Now they're the administrator, they're the authority when it comes to this, right?
Right.
That's his stance. Now these teachers, now obviously, what they teach you in Black History Month is nothing when it comes to the vast history that will take way more than just a month to cover. But they are the authority, and they think that they know more than the people that they're teaching. So what kind of setting is that? You know what I'm saying?
Okay. I get it. I mean, I think that's the insidious nature behind Black History Month in itself. For the mere fact that it's being, that onus and that responsibility is being thrusted upon people who have absolutely no right to provide, such a huge breadth of knowledge to those who do not look like them. And for one, never experienced any of the trials and tribulations. And I'm not saying you had to have been in the civil rights movement or to really be able to teach about Black History Month. But Lord, if you've never sat in a restaurant that has, or been looked at or been told to get out of this area because you look like or you sound like this, I find it very hard for you to be able to really, to really sit back and sort of empathize with the plight of those who are going through said movements during the course of Black History Month, and the different types of trials that they had to embody in order to just simply to create some of the history that they had put forth for human history, not even just for Black history, but for human history, because that's essentially where I kind of am just baffled by the fact that we get 25 days, and I can't remember the comedian or the figure who brought up Morgan Freeman. We spoke about this is something that I've taken always with me. It was from that interview. I've mentioned this interview on a prior podcast, but during the course of this interview, where he was kind of going through this with this interviewer about the sort of the nature of racism in America and whatnot, and he was just like, he really doesn't understand Black History Month. He doesn't understand the point of it. because he asked the report. And the guy was Jewish. Like he's like, hey, are you do you consider yourself a Jewish man, and or a man of the Jewish religion, or sorry, do you consider yourself a Jewish man? And the man was like, absolutely, yes. And he was like, do you want a Jewish History Month? And then the guy was like, no, he's like, do you think you can bottle down all your history into 1 month? And he was like, no. He's like, so why should I want one for my history? And then it's just the guy just sat there and he just looked at him and was just like, couldn't even answer. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, and it's a question that, if some people looked at it in the vacuum, they probably been like, oh, that's a little smug on the nose. But but let's be real. You know what I mean? Let's be real. Like, what is the government found it upon themselves to thrust this on us as if to say, here you go, come again, and we took it. We as we've normally been used, we've taken these punches on the chin, and we soaked it up, and we commercialized the fuck out of it. To where we're having this conversation about it now, and how trivial it has become. 50 plus years later. It's something that is just, it again baffles me as to where we've gone with this month.
Yeah, well, I think that as you know, I call it re-indoctrination month. Because that's what it is. And when Morgan Freeman was asking that guy those questions, I'm pretty sure he's intelligent enough to understand that it's a re-indoctrination period where because not for nothing, you don't even have to know. Like I know a lot about history in general. You don't even have to know as much as I've read about history to know that not every quote unquote black person that came to this land on a ship was a slave.
Right.
Now that's not even me saying that there were already quote unquote black people here and on all other parts of the world. We had already circumnavigated this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? It had already been done.
Right.
Europeans weren't the first people to invent boats. So, there's many rivers and waterways in Africa. So, like that's not even, I'm not even getting quote unquote deep yet. But the fact that they try to make it seem that every freaking quote unquote black person here that you see today is a descendant of a motherfucking slave, like that is just crazy to me.
Right.
Not for nothing, quote unquote blacks owned slaves, black and white people, back in the 1600s, in the early 1700s.
I mean, even before then,
Yes, but I mean right. Here in this, but yeah, definitely before then. But here in this country,
like yes, for sure.
Actually, the one of the first cases in this country of someone being sued about a slave, it was a black slave owner suing a white slave owner because the white slave owner told the black slave, the black slave owner's slave, who was a black man, that hey, like, because back in this time, like they didn't start the slave trade as we know it today. It was pretty much indentured servitude.
Correct.
Where you would work for, you would be a slave for this person for a certain amount of time, like 4 to 7 years, and when you're done, you can go. And then most times they'll give you money and they'll give you tools, and that's it. But this guy said that his time was up, and that he was unhappy about what was going on. He told it to the white slave owner. The white slave owner said, "Hey, like just go." So then the black slave left. The black slave owner sued the white dude, lost the first one, appealed it, won it, and got the slave back. And then the white dude had to pay money to the black dude. But they don't teach you that. And that's not even hard to come by. And like I said, that's the first court hearing regarding a slave and a slave owner in this country. Why don't we teach that? Because there's a reason. Because they're indoctrinating us every fucking year that you all came from slaves.
Right.
There's no history in that. You're a second-class citizen, and it's mental warfare. That's what it is. And we have to know better and do better to teach our children that the true story, the true narrative. Not saying that this didn't happen with her and all that. No, that stuff happened. That happened. That's not all that happened.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just for me it's just it's been over these last these last I want to say 8 or 9 years or so. It's been very hard for me to sit back and accept sort of the role that those of color have sort of been thrust upon by this nation. It's been it's like I always have to take a step back and look at these different situations with a grain of salt. And it's so when we talk about you know just the fact that the pretentiousness that exists behind a Black History Month. And as I mentioned before, the fact that there are no other sections. I mean, they've done this with Latinos. They gave them a month. You know what I mean? I mean, the NBA has has the special jerseys that they wear in Latin month. Um, and now I'm just I'm again it bugs the fuck out of me, right? Because even when they do it, right, even when they want to give a Black History Month, they don't even do it right. Because if you were truly going to do a Black History Month, every single walking facet of your schooling curriculum, not just your history class, should then should invoke some part of of the quote unquote Black figure into their classroom. Mathematics should be speaking about notable Black figures within the mathematics realm from human history. You know what I mean? It should not just be limited to just to just Black history in a nutshell. And that is the reason why it is a stupid month to begin with, because there is so many contributions that have been provided by those of color. Most notably those that look like us to a certain degree, and come from our different backgrounds, whether they be from the Caribbean, whether they be from Africa, whether they be from, South America and further on, and all different walks of life. We have existed on this planet far longer than the Caucasian counterpart. Yet you would not even, again, and I think I've mentioned this before. It's because the victor has gone to the spoils of victor have gone to the breath of the beholder.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So all of everything, right? Everything, all the pictures, even down to the damn maps, right? If you look at the maps that they show in schools, they are extremely disfigured, right? They got Africa looking like the same size as the United States of America, when in all actuality you could fit 3 Americas into Africa. Like it's the distortion that exists within, just simply, and then the people, when they look at these things, they go, oh well, maybe it's just a misnomer. No, these things are extremely intentional. They're doing it to invoke again a sense of European. If you look at the way Europe's shaped, I mean, Europe is like a button. The United Kingdom is like a button. But then if you look at the maps that they created to depict the world, you wouldn't even get that idea. You would think it was right on par with Africa, a small country. Would just you would get that idea. It's again, it's these blatant forms of, as Aaron mentioned, indoctrination, that create these parallels to where people sit back and they go, oh well, they tried, they tried giving us a bone. You know what I mean? Like I could see, I do want to learn a little bit more. I want to give more appreciation to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. I want to, but then it's like you completely forget about all the other figures that came before these people, right? That built the way for them to even be able to voice the opinions that they had.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's oh my god, it's just incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah.
I've just never understood.
Yeah. That's a great word to use, Mike, because it is. It's like a huge slap every year. And it irks. It literally irks my nerves to almost no end, because it's ingenuous. The biggest slap in the face, and is when you have these Caucasian teachers, professors teaching quote unquote Black history, and they know nothing. If they truly did, I doubt teaching them what they teach in school, unless they're part of the agenda. You know what I mean? Which,
Right.
anyway, back to to move this conversation forward. Now, when I was growing up, obviously Martin Luther King. Like I remember him since remember the first time I heard of Martin Luther King, I was in kindergarten. Now I heard of Malcolm because growing up in Brooklyn, there's a lot of all over the place. And he's a common character in those. And then also there's a lot of streets named after him. Malcolm X boulevards all over New York.
Oh yeah.
Malcolm X. When it Black History Month, I was never taught about Malcolm X. I didn't learn about Malcolm X until I watched the movie Malcolm X, directed by Spike Lee, starring Denzel Washington. Like that's when I who the hell Malcolm X was, and I was like, damn, he was one bad bro. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
To teach him, and that's what I remember asking myself. How come I know a lot about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. What's up with that?
Right.
So then I started to say, that's when I really started to begin to understand that they were cherry picking the information that they're giving to us, because obviously,
absolutely,
was considered a radical, especially in his earlier days when he was calling the white man the devil and all that stuff. But they don't want you to see this intelligent, well-spoken, black man with a backbone, afraid to speak his mind and defend his truths. You know what I'm saying? I had no problem showing you the docile, quote unquote, black man. Why do you think that is? Obviously, you and I know that. I'm asking this question for the listeners, the ones that don't understand, or never attacked this conversation from this perspective. Why do you think that is? And also, if you don't, please do your research. But moving on, Marcus Garvey he came before Malcolm and Martin. Like he was doing big things back in the 19th. He bought his own steam line and ships and everything. I mean, don't get me wrong, the company failed, but he got the ship and he was trying to take everyone back to Africa. Way more story than that, way more, and definitely research on that too. But they don't talk about Marcus Garvey during Black History Month. They teach you about the cheat. You know what I'm saying?
Well, because you know why? Because it's again like Martin Luther King was. I mean, obviously we know, but for our viewers, I mean, you take a step back, right? And look at these figures, right? And look at sort of Martin Luther King was the Kellogg Frosted Flakes of the movement, right? And you can, if you want to equate Malcolm X to to a figure, I mean to a dish, right? He was the less palatable cereal that you can think of, right? That you just like, like he was the corn, like Martin Luther King was more of like the corn flakes, you know what I'm saying, without the sugar, that people could just, okay, I could swallow this. I may not like it, you know what I'm saying, because he's still empowering these Negroes, but at the same token, he's not out here and quote unquote inciting violence, so to speak, to the point where they peddled that nonsense. Even with his low approval ratings at that time, I mean, he was still, when they did a survey of, most unliked Americans, he was at the top of that list when he was alive for the vast majority of the movement, which is funny to me how he's become such a revered figure as time has gone on. That, but that's not, neither here nor there. But when you look at the Malcolm X, they used to pin these two brothers against one another on a considerable basis, to the extent to where Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were vehemently, during the course of their lives, had to make sure that they sheltered each self away from each other's agendas. And then it didn't come until the latter part of Martin Luther King's life to where he really sort of understood where brother Malcolm X was coming from with his views. All right, it's not until you sit back and you're sort of on the precipice of death, in your view, you start to say, you know what, like this guy wasn't off, too off from what he was talking about, you know, and it's the power of these governmental, these governmental agencies, most notably the FBI, which was a huge component in the driving force as to how these men essentially lost their lives. I don't care what anybody says, but when you look at documentation, J. Edgar Hoover went above and beyond to shatter Martin Luther King's good name. He went above and beyond to shatter the credibility of Malcolm X. I mean, these are he was the head of the FBI, essentially, and they were there's many quoted texts where they are essentially afraid of these men because they are putting all of this empowerment into the views of those who are supposed to be unencumbered and supposed to be leading a life of subjugated sort of melancholy, where they just don't fight back. They just kind of sit there, take it on everything on the chin, and then move along as the status quo. And so this is something that I think we need to, our viewers, I would hope you take a look at not just these two figures, but all the figures that lost their lives as a course of the movement, and look at why. It wasn't just because they were, just saying black is this and black is beautiful, and like, no, like look at the agendas that they were pushing, right? And then look at how in those days, and even in these times now about us, they are found as problematic. Because I guarantee you're not going to see Marcus Garvey's face come across any of the airwaves unless there's someone who goes above and beyond to their network producer and says, hey, you got to talk about this guy. But most times they're not. I rarely hear, the likes of even with, I mean, there's a, I don't know if you saw the Sam Cooke documentary, Aaron, the two killings of Sam Cooke. Where because they have this movie coming out. I don't know if you heard about the one that the Night in Miami with with talking about Sam Cooke, Jim Brown, Malcolm X, and Muhammad Ali on that fateful night where they met up after Muhammad Ali's fight in Miami in that hotel. But they have a documentary out. I suggest our viewers take a look at this as well, because he was another figure who was also sort of ran through the mud. Sam Cooke was a notable recording artist during that time period, on par with Elvis Presley. I had no idea that this man was such a pioneer. I had no idea of even his name. Until I'm telling you, I had no idea of Sam Cooke before. I mean, obviously, it's me being from where I am, I just didn't. I had no breadth of of hearing of this man. So when I saw Sam Cooke, I kept seeing his name come across on Netflix, and I was like, oh, let me take a look at this. Let me because if I see Sam Cooke one more time, I feel like I'm doing myself a misjustice by not watching this documentary. And as soon as I got done, dude, I was all choked up. Like I couldn't. I'm not saying I couldn't breathe, but I just was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? I'm like, how could I not know about this guy? Like this guy who literally was the pioneer behind artist empowerment. And for especially people of color to basically own their careers. Right, all these different things. Say that again.
His death.
Yes, they spoke about that in the documentary, because that's why they call it the two killings of Sam Cooke, and it was beautifully broken down. I like the way that they went, not about the killing, obviously, but I like the way that they went about explaining his life, and sort of the two different lives that he was essentially living. Right, he lived one as a popular recording artist, right, and then he also had to battle that because it's like he wanted to sing songs that were geared towards the plight of his people, right, but also he had to make sure that in the beginning of this endeavor that he was on, it's also how do I I still want to be influential, right? So in order for me to have this breath to speak to the white people, quote unquote white people, I still have to be able to I have to make songs that go towards that as well. right? So how do I play both sides of it? And eventually Sam Cooke dived straight into, you know, protecting the plight of his people, and obviously, you know, down the line that led to, um, you know, his eventual death. But yeah, like I said, watch that. Before I let you guys, yeah, I just want everybody to definitely watch that documentary, because it was definitely an amazing documentary, and it blew my mind open to learning more about Sam Cooke and its
I had
totality.
already known, obviously about Sam Cooke growing up. You know, this is one of those, you know, you can't escape it. You know, growing up,
Right.
African American,
Yeah.
you know, you definitely, there's just things that it's like growing up Nigerian. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, wait, what?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No,
Like, wait,
I
what?
get that.
So no, I just want to touch on a few points before we push this forward. So a lot of people don't notice. A lot of people don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And you touched on this. Martin Luther King, towards the end of his life, started to understand Malcolm X, and that's because Martin Luther King was being pimped out for a while by Marxist movements, socialist movements that had infiltrated the country. And J. He was, you know, obviously power, but he also was. And I read two of his books, one about communism, and then one about him taking down like Marcus Garvey and Martin Luther King. But, so yeah, he knew that Martin Luther King had ties to communists, and you know, Martin Luther King, he didn't really know. You know, he thought that what he was doing was on the up and up. You know, he didn't really know what was going on, and to the very end. And then when he tried to fight for union rights and garbage men or something like that, he was fighting for the union rights of garbage men or something like that. He was trying to push some agenda like that, and then that's when they took his ass out, which tells that they.
Who are you talking about? You're talking about Marcus Garvey or Martin Luther King?
Because they didn't take it when he was pushing for civil rights. That bill got passed. It got signed. They didn't take him out for the Voting Rights Act. They took him out when he was trying to, you know, affect the workers. That's when they were like, you know, you overstepped your damn bounds. You know what I mean? We didn't mind when you
absolutely,
and, you know, turning the other cheek, talking about these Negroes, but now you want to freaking start messing with the money. Now we gotta take your ass out. So, but yeah, but towards the end, Martin knew, you know, he saw the writing on the wall, but it was a little too late. And now another misconception that gets taught every year is that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Now, did he sign the Emancipation Proclamation, which in turn freed, quote unquote, freed the slaves? Yes, he did. But he didn't do it out of the kindness of his fucking heart. And I've heard people even say that he did it because he had to punish the South. And even no, that's not true either. The reason why that Emancipation Proclamation was signed and had to be signed was because slavery is what gave the South so much power. The South has so much power compared to the North back then. It was utterly ridiculous. When you look at the numbers of the GDP that the South was producing compared to the North, that's why the South was able to start a war. And had they won the war, they would have been able to be a country like no questions asked. Like they had so much money off of the backs of free labor. Now, Abraham Lincoln and the Union, they knew that once the war was over, they had to take away the slaves, because if not, you're just going to give them the same resources that they had to do it the first time. So it wasn't like punish them. It was they have too much power. It was way too much power. That's why it was done. Because I know a lot of people out there don't know that, don't understand that. But now you know.
Well, that's exactly why Abraham Lincoln made it very clear in his footnotes that he could care less about slaves.
Oh yeah, he said if there's a way that I could keep the Union together without doing it, I would do it. So like, people don't do their research, and then they not only do people not do their research, they allow other people to just feed them misinformation. They just accept it, and that's the issue. You know, both of those are the issue. You can't be lazy. We live in an age of information. You can Google anything right now, and you know, sift through everything that you Google. Go to click on everything on the first page, and then click on everything on the second page, and just keep on going. You know,
Right.
people, they don't want to do it, but again, that's fine too, because people don't want to do it. That gives us something to talk about. We get to teach people.
I can't. That is very true. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's something that I definitely want our viewers to take under consideration is and I think this is something that I try to find. Sorry, we're getting some feedback right now. Hold on, let me start this and start it again. Be right back, y'all.
Yo, yo, yo.
Yo. All right, that is so much better. Um, but what was I saying? Yeah, so that is bringing it back, y'all. Where we're talking about the Black History Month, that's upon us, and we are here at M.A.S Media, we're starting to navigate. We're trying to navigate this month, right? And I think we're at a point in this conversation where it's more so about we understand where it comes from, right? We understand why it was created, but now we're looking into the value, right, as to what this month it encompasses. And what I can tell our viewers and our listeners is that take a step back once more and look at you know what kind of information you're truly expunging from this month, right? Or are you just going to continue to play it safe and continue to look at the small figures, right? And I mean, not the small essentially, but compared to the huge breadth of history that we have on this planet, these men only lived for so long, right? There's so much more that encompasses naturally, what has gone on and how we've committed to providing human history with something to be proud of, right? The pyramids, the inner work, the irrigation system located, utilized by those, the Egyptians, in as far as building out the due course of the Nile, right? All these different other metrics that have been put forth that we see today were have such deep history within the central and western part of Africa, right? Like these you would never know about any of these things if it wasn't for the fact that somebody named John essentially just threw out the book and essentially was like do a blank slate of paper out and was like, you know what, let me just go ahead and write it the way it just needs to be written, right? There was, and that you see, and then just to even say it in those terms, right? You can imagine how much power, and this is why when I look at the Bible, I don't really get too hopped up on it, right? Yes, I'm sure that there was a ton of, good intentions upon its, inception, but essentially this is something that has been devoid and created by man, right? So whenever I look at anything that has been written by man, I have to then take a step back and look at if there's any insidious nature behind said words, right? And then when you look at how they basically indoctrinated, people of color by using the Bible on a steadfast, consistent basis, right? Using those words and warping individuals into believing and basically chastising everything that they had grown up in across the Atlantic, and just thrown it all away just for the sake of saying you can be saved by this, curly headed, not curly, but this straight haired, bearded white man, is just like, come on. It's like come the fuck on, man. And so when I look at all this stuff, like look at Black History Month, I continue to see I continue to see a month that has been sort of set up on a plate, and shipped away for people to sort of sit back and say, hey, here you go. Thank you for coming and thank you for playing this human race game. And I appreciate your time. Wish I could give you something more to eat, but at the same token, this is what we've got set away in the budget for you, and I hope you can take it with a smile on your face.
Take it with a smile on your face.
It's insane, dude.
Yeah, you know what,
Absolutely
too, Mike? Something. I mean, this doesn't really have to do with Black History Month the way it is constructed, but this is something else that people don't know, and those that do know don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you brought up the ancient Egyptian, Now, the fact that there's a quote unquote debate going on whether the ancient Egyptians were quote unquote black or not is beyond me, because obviously they were quote unquote black. They were the ancient Kemits. It was called Kemet back then. It wasn't even called Egypt. It was called Kemet,
Mm-hmm.
and it obviously is part of Africa. And obviously, we all know how the Nile River flows. It doesn't actually flow down like towards south. It actually flows the opposite way. Like,
Oh
when
yeah.
you think about the Mississippi River, yeah, you can take it from Canada down to Louisiana, Mississippi area, south. The Nile River runs north. That's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that kind of deflates the argument that, oh, these people were the Arab people, the light-skinned people. No, because the river's going the opposite way.
Right.
The river's going the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
So if people were to migrate, they would migrate from Central Eastern Africa up to Egypt through the Nile. You know what I mean? So, but yes, we have friends who are quote unquote Egyptian, and some of them actually know that they are not the true people of quote unquote Egypt. They're not Kemits.
Correct.
They're not Kemits. You can look at the statues, the facial features.
Yep.
You know, the types of these statues are Africanoid. You know, but again, they try to bleach it. They try to rewrite the history. They try to bleach it.
Mm-hmm.
No. Anything but black. They weren't black. All right, we'll give you they were Arabs, but we won't give you that they were quote unquote black.
Yeah.
And this is the last piece I'll say on this too. Now, if anyone knows anyone who is a Muslim, you know that of all the faiths on the planet, their faith is very, very strong. You know, like if you've ever met a Muslim person, you ever been in a Muslim household, you understand that a lot of them live and die by that book. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And with that being said, when you go to Africa, now I've never been, but I have friends and family who have been taking photos, and I've obviously watched documentaries and stuff like that. But when you go to Africa, when you go to Mecca, you won't find a piece of freaking bubblegum wrapper blown around that motherfucker, because that's sacred than the motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna find no graffiti, no nothing.
Yeah.
Even near Mecca. They won't even be out there trying to sell you CDs or no freaking none of the things that they put on their head. They won't be doing none of that out there. But if you take your ass to those pyramids, oh, they're doing all of it out there, man. They dismantling the statues and the pyramids and selling stuff on the pyramids and stuff like that. They're making jokes and mockery of the pyramids. Why? Because they know that's not their history. That's why.
Very well said. You good?
Yep. I just had to drop that nugget right there.
You stupid. Yeah, I can't. No, I can't. But
no offense to our Egyptian friends. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I'm not saying they're not the problems. You know what I'm saying?
No, of course not.
I'm just saying that I'm just speaking truth.
No, and I think that's something that's extremely powerful, and that's a very interesting way of looking at it. And I think that is why, there is such, I mean, I even had that notion, right? And I think that's when I was growing up, when I would say, Egyptian people aren't really African, it was with that intention in mind, right? Obviously, nobody's stupid. I mean, Egypt is located in Africa, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I can just basically be like, let's move in and separate. But let's be real, like the nomadic individuals that look like and are considering themselves to be Egyptian today were not the same individuals that were the Bible was speaking about all those years ago. Like I'm sorry, there's just no way that I mean, look at our boy Omar, right? I mean, obviously the northeastern climate obviously has lightened his face considerably, but even so, right? I mean, if you look at his family, there's no way that he could be considered with that harsh climate up there, right, and that amount of sun to be that sort of color. There's just no way. There's no absolute way that he's sun stained a little bit, but it's not enough. I mean, come on, they're hitting 120 plus degrees up there, pure sun, smack dab in the middle. Okay, breathe in the middle. You know, so it's just there's just no way. So I mean, so it's never a slight against, but we have to be realistic about these things because again, when you tell the tale, when they talk about Egypt and all the things that they've done, like Aaron mentioned, they're gonna give it to the Arabic people. They're gonna be like, yeah, they look like him. They look like his ancestors when they did not. They look more like my ancestors.
Yep.
Okay, and that's something that that really cuts me deep because as a boy growing up, how am I supposed to aspire? If I grew up, if I would be damned if I was, and I'm sorry to say this, but I would be damned if I was an African American kid, right, who grew up in this country, because if you look at the Black History Month, slaves were brought here on Monday, you got civil rights came on Wednesday. And then, racism was lifted on Thursday. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's the timeline just is insane to me. It's like, wait a minute, what happened before slavery?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck happened? Like, and then if I want to get anything that happened before slavery, I gotta go to the whitewashed book, from the King John's version, right? To then look at, Moses, who was essentially as white as a piece of paper, and had gray hair all over. Took the people from Egypt, right? Let my people go, with that, with that Home Depot ass, fucking commercial song, bring them over the Nile. I'm sorry, bring them over the Red Sea, over into prosperity. And it's just like, if I want to get any breath of, oh my God, and feeling proud about, my nation, they're pulling people out. Like, it's like in the book, they're talking about pulling people out of Africa. So it's like, come on, like where am I supposed to get any semblance of pride, of any sense of owning my identity, right? When you essentially take everything out that is good and fine with what we've done on this planet, right? I mean, Aaron, you've mentioned this on numerous occasions about how people of there's many texts that speak about how Africans brought the bathing system to Europe because essentially.
Yes.
They were walking around, They were
living in caves.
Yeah,
they were
in
literally
filth.
living in caves.
Living in cave and filth.
Living in filth. They were eating lice off of each other. Like they would eat the lice off each other. They would eat with dogs. And people have said before, like, you ever seen like how attached, quote unquote, white people are to their animals, especially dogs? It's crazy. And growing up, they always want to say, black people are like monkeys and yada yada. Well, actually,
oh no,
going to get funky.
Oh snap!
Sub-Saharan African people are the only people on this planet that do not have any Neanderthal DNA in their genetics at all. Europeans, however, have anywhere between, I think it was 2 to 5% Neanderthal DNA. Now, if you know what a Neanderthal is, then you know that your cousin was pretty much Harambe.
Oh my God!
I'm making jokes right now.
Before we get Nick Cannon on here,
no, that's genetics, and that's coming from quote unquote white scientists. Yes. That's not making up that's your people that came up with that, and it's true. So no, the reality is y'all were up in the Caucasus Mountain area, and y'all were living like savages. Yeah. And the quote unquote Africans civilized y'all, taught y'all how to wash yourself and stuff like that, and trim your hair, and how to wear clothes, and not to eat with your animals and stuff like that. Like that's real. That really happened. But again, if you just listen to history, Africa was full of freaking savages, and the white man went over and civilized us, and we were all wearing loincloths.
Yep. Swinging from trees.
Exactly. And no, they were like, think about it. If you know anything about the Moors literally were like running Europe, and the Moors were quote unquote black.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Moors built castles in Europe. There's still Moorish castles still standing to this day in Europe, and they were built by quote unquote black people.
Yeah. I mean, even one of the most famous, Caucasian plays of all time by William Shakespeare was based on a Moor, allegedly. Right? I have to say allegedly.
Was a black man. That's what they say. They say Shakespeare was a quote unquote black man.
Or no, did they say he was, or that the person that he took the plays from was?
That he was.
Okay, I know, because I know that there's another theory that he, like, it wasn't him, right? It was someone else that he sort of bamboozled the plays from, and then slapped his name on it, right? So that way he
Well, I
could.
mean, that wouldn't be the first.
Right.
Thomas Edison did that.
Yeah.
Thomas Edison had a quote unquote black. I don't know. I'm not sure if he was a slave or an
No, it was like
understudy.
a PA. It's like a PA kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, he just stole a lot of his fucking shit.
yeah,
A lot of it.
yeah. He's out there.
Stole it.
He's writing in his book, and then he's fucking in the middle of the night. He's like, huh. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, go on home. Go on home, man. You're done for today. It's all good. Don't worry about. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh wow, he fixed this thing, didn't he? Wow. How the hell did he put this? Yeah. Your book got lost in the garbage. I threw it out by accident. Yeah. Just yeah. Go ahead and put something else together for me if you could, real quick. Shit. Yeah, that thing right there, that filament. Yeah, take that filament idea of yours. Yeah, how about we encase that in a sort of ceramic sort of sort of object in order to create this lighting aspect of it. Holy shit, you are on to something. Yeah, we're just gonna slap my name on it because if we slap your name on it, it's not gonna get through the patent and shit. It's not gonna get through.
Right.
So yeah, we'll just slap my name on it. I'll throw some royalties at you, maybe. Sort of.
Yeah. He had a handshake deal.
Yeah. Handshake with his hands tied behind his back, with his hands crossed, with his fingers crossed. Like, yeah, I got you, bro. I got you.
I got you.
But even then, right? People still don't even want to give any credit. And then you know what it is? It's funny because like when you look at like people, I will see individuals try so hard to slap in that individual, and I mean I want to get his name, so we can do so. But they'll try so hard to get that individual's name onto the airwaves, right? And then it's just like you see watch as it just steadily just like yeah, I heard about that. I heard about that guy, and it's just like eventually again you hear Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison created the light bulb. He created all this, and it's just like it just waters out every. It's like an optical illusion almost. When you talk about us just trying to get some credit. You know what I mean? And I think this is the nefarious aspect of Black History Month. Right. And I think this is why we have such a problem with if we're going to make it a dichotomy, with our Caucasian counterparts, is because essentially because they've controlled the narrative, that aspect of respect is just not there. Right. They've controlled the narrative because they've essentially wiped out virtually all respect that could be given to those of color. Right, because they've wiped all of our notions, all of our creations, our inventions, our technology, our vast steadfast improvements to the human living environment. They've taken all of that, right, and basically have concocted a method in which they could take all the credit and then give us all of the shitty, non-impactful aspects of our society. And now when we look at the totem pole they've created, essentially, we're so far down that totem pole, there's no even need to consider us to even sit at the table, when if there was a table, we should be sitting steadfast at the head. But you would never know that because, again, we have been subjugated to the children's table in Thanksgiving, where we're supposed to sit with other individuals who haven't accomplished much for our society. But in all actuality, we should be leading all conversations. But you would never get that because of the picture they've drawn.
But you know what else happens too, that we don't really pay much attention to? The whole time, just take your average 5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the person is going to go through the public school system, so that's 12 grades, plus kindergarten, 13 grades. But I'm not sure if really in kindergarten they're teaching you Black History Month.
If they are, it's probably song and dance shit. I don't really think it's like. Yeah.
So let's just say 12 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now those 12 years, while you're being re-indoctrinated to believe that you just came from slavery, Like no one told you all the stories that I just told you today, or that Mike told you today. You know, you never heard that. All you hear is, you know, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King. You don't even hear about Malcolm X unless someone wants to get real jive and pay some lip service.
Correct.
Now, that whole time, right next to you, little Caucasian Johnny is learning as well that your people came from such and such and such and such. And now you're second class citizen. So on one hand, and with the same words, you're teaching one little boy and little girl that you're second class and this is where you come from. There's no history before the quote unquote white man brought you here.
Mm-hmm.
And the future is good as long as you can run and jump high.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? And then at the same breath, at the same time, teaching young Johnny that you used to own this kid. A couple hundred years ago, you would have owned this person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what's going on at the same damn time. And then you get people grow up, and now when if I took 12 years of anything, right? Anything, I did it for 12 years. I had to learn that shit. After the 12 years, I'm gonna think that I'm pretty competent in said field, right?
That's fair.
So, you know, these people that they're in their 20s and older, and they think they know already. Like, no, your history is this. And then when they come out their mouth saying some crazy shit, you know, they truly believe it, and it's truly shrouded in ignorance, because they've been done a great disservice by their family and the government and the education system as a whole.
Wow, that is a really fascinating way of looking at it. I never really, you know, me bringing up that, you know, the whole the respect argument, right? The respect, the idea, you know, I think you just basically, you know, that you know, I think you just like what's the sort of amplified it, so to speak, right? So much more, because that you know, to think about it in those terms is just, it's almost shaking, right? It's just that, you know, we're essentially, the table is once more getting set, right, as to how someone is going to depict their counterpart for generations going forward, right? And they thought that when they brought this month together, the people that, the African American people that lived during that time where it was being invoked, right, and set in it was set stage, Black History Month, the idea, right? They were thinking, wow, this is going to be great. You know, we're going to get all this, you know, we're going to be able to talk about our people. We're going to be able to talk about this. I feel like if those individuals were alive today, which a lot of them are actually, but especially the ones that were the forerunners, right? They would be hard pressed to find some semblance of pride in anything that has been deemed, you know, Black History Month, in the years that have gone on since its inception. You know, I really couldn't, and I really couldn't see, you know, I mean, maybe they'll find some pride in the fact that obviously there was no such thing anywhere, you know, to begin with. But I think they would be more, you know, depressed and more, you know, saddened by the fact that we've had to, you know, this is the plate that we've been given, right? The fact that we even need to be given a plate, right? You know, because again, like, there is no such thing as Caucasian History Month, right? Because how do you fixate, you know, all that's happened in human history into just 1 month? How could I possibly cover that? And the fact that you've given me a month to do so only says, you know, how much you respect, you know, my seat at the table. And again, we can't really have a conversation about anything until you respect, you know, what I have offered, you know, this species, you know, since we've gone from excuse me, since we've gone from the amoeba, bacteria, to the living body, that we've invoked into now, right? That is something that is just, you know, I think it's unforgivable. And, you know, I think for me, when I look at going next steps forward, as far as, you know, where I see the Black History Month going, I mean, I would hope that before my lifetime is over, that we can eradicate it, and instead invoke a 365-day, you know, 12-month a year approach, where we're talking about how these individuals, because they did something I can assuredly guarantee you that a member of the African American, a member of the African, um, you know, all walks of life have committed something on every single day of the year to the human society. So that should be the approach. I can't wait to that day where that where we blow the because it won't happen in our lifetime, right? But at some point or another, someone is going to blow the rooftop on, you know, on that respect this deficiency that I'm talking about. And when that day happens, Lord, Caucasian people are going to be scared. They are going to be scared in the beginning stages of it, right? I'm sure at some point or another they will, because again, the generations now that are coming up and the way that they're mixing people together, is I can guarantee the people that are in their 50s and 60s are looking at it and going, whoa, none of this was going on back in my day. Like, no, my kids were hanging out with no Felipes and no friggin' no Juans and all this other stuff. Like, no, this is insane. The way kids are mixing around nowadays. You know what I'm saying? So, this country is just a bag of mixed nuts. And the people that have controlled the narrative for the latter part of, the last, 500, 600 plus years, you look out. That's all I got to say to you. Is just look out because, the tale of information is about to be spun into the eye of the beholder, and the beholder no longer sits at the Caucasian mountains.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I agree with that. What's next? What we got next?
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's sort of at this point in this conversation, right? It's kind of I just want to see, I want us to kind of dive into to finish up is, where what do we want our viewers to really get about, this month and what the takeaway should be.
Yeah. I mean, what I would personally like for our viewers to take away from quote unquote Black History Month, whether they're Black, Hispanic, or Caucasian, Asian. My takeaway, what I want you to take away, what I'd like you to take away is to understand the reality that we're all living in a matrix. And the sooner you unplug, the better off we'll all be. They're feeding us all of these things and keeping us quote unquote entertained, keeping us busy. That way, we don't know the true the true power that we actually have, in our true history. Because if you think that quote unquote Black people finding out their history only benefits us, then you're 100% misled. Because very briefly, there's quote unquote Black history in all of you. Africa is the birthplace of the human race, so that's where it all started. And there's Aboriginal, quote unquote Blacks on every continent. Well, not now because a lot of them have been exterminated, by freaking Caucasian Europeans. But at one point there were, and that's a part of your history. You look at any country, they have a history with quote unquote Blacks or quote unquote Aboriginals, whatever you want to call them, and that's a history that they like to keep hidden as well. So don't sit here if you're not quote unquote American and your family comes from Southeast Asia, or whatnot, and have your nose up. No. Do some research and you'll be surprised. I guarantee you. So pretty much the takeaway is everyone do their homework. Unplug from the matrix. Do your own due diligence. All right, because there's a lot out there that we all need to learn about who we are as a people. And then maybe in doing so, you'll learn or gain respect for other people.
Perfectly said. I mean, in a nutshell, I mean, just to add, I mean, all I can say is that, and I love that matrix concept. I think that is something that I would want our viewers to essentially focus on, even more so, as far as my takeaway, is look at the insidious nature behind, some of these different avenues that have been created, right, by people who do not look like us, right? So you should already be, before you even fix your lips to say, well, I mean, we have a month, right? Think about why in God's name they felt necessary to give us a month. And then from there, once you take that, right, take that semblance of information and unplug, as Aaron, my co-host, has eloquently mentioned, right, be able to look at from a sort of a bird's eye view as to how does this get them what they want, right? And so essentially, once you can do that, then you're able to then move forward and expand, right? Expand into what else we have touched, right? Because we have touched so many different areas of of the human race, right? Um, of the technological sphere, of the religious sphere, of all these different avenues in the societal hemisphere that we constructed today. We exist, right? And in order to really understand where that pride comes from, right? That when you look at African people, you look at a Nigerian, a Ghanaian, even a South African, right, or a Kenyan, or you see, and this is for my brothers and sisters out there who are trying to be quote unquote woke, right? Truly, if you're gonna go down that route, right, don't come at me with the vanilla shit, which is and I'm sorry to say this, but the Martin Luther Kings and the Malcolm X. Bring me, right, bring me the depth of African knowledge, right? Bring me the pride, the true pride, that someone should have in where they come from. And if you can't do that, and all you can basically say is, again, that black people were slaves, right? On Monday, Harriet Tubman freed them on Wednesday. Abraham Lincoln freed slaves on Thursday, and now Martin Luther King got blacks and whites to get along on Saturday. It's just like you're not helping. You're not helping at all, and all you're doing is simply just giving white people something else to talk about, right? To make fun of, right? Because I guarantee you, those that are walking around doing this whole woke talk, you're being made fun of, right? And it's no, people are not taking you seriously, and the reason is because, again, you're placating, and you're looking solely at this as from an egotistical point of view. And if you're going to take that route, and you're not going to truly dive into the vast, rich history that exists for those of color, right, and take that journey, right? I mean, even with the little things, like, for the sake of, again, I spoke about Sam Cooke, I spoke about taking that leap, right, to say, you know what, let me watch this documentary and get something out of this, because there's something about this man that's just oozing of influence, right? And that's just one person, and that person existed just 50 years ago. Imagine the individuals that existed 300 years ago, 400 years ago, 500, 600, 1,000, 2 millennia. You know what I mean? The list goes on and on. Like, this is the love and the appreciation that we should have for Black History Year, right, going forward. And I hope our viewers can have that same inspiration going forward as this month goes by, and as well as this year 2021 goes by as well. And I hope I've been able to give you guys something to look forward to when it comes to embarking on that journey of identity. All right.
Yeah, like me too.
All right, y'all. So this is your boys here at M.A.S Media signing out. Have a good one.
Are you sure about that?